Where did I park my car? I think my car is not here. My car's not here. Where did I park my car? Now I remember. I parked my car somewhere near the bakery's parking lot.
Run.
Alright everyone, my name is Arif, and the first topic I'm going to talk to you about is the stages and function of memory process. First off, there are three main stages of memory. There are encoding, storage, and retrieval. This is called the term memory process. The first one being encoding. This is to receive, combine, and process the information that was given to us. This is also allows information to stimulate from the outside world to reach our senses in a form of physical and chemical stimulation. It changes the information so that it can be perceived to encoding process during the first stage. As for the second, we have the storage. This is the creation of the permanent records of all our recorded information. This is the second part of the memory stage or process that maintains any information over a period of time. The third and last stage is the retrieval, which means recognition or recalling. Stored information is respond to a cue of an activity or a process. This also retrieves the information that we store in any given time. Some retrieval may be even effortless depending on any memory or information. It also can be located and returned to our consciousness. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lim Shirley. I will explain the importance of retrieval cue in memory and the factors that influence how memory are retrieved. Imagine that you are shopping at Jaya Grocer when you meet a girl. She hugs you and tells you all about her day and weekend. You realize that you know her, but you cannot remember her name. You don't want to seem rude, so you let her continue her conversation. You look around, searching for some clue to her identity. You look into her cart and see a bottle of champagne. A scene pops up in your mind of you bought the same champagnes as your best friend's birthday presents. You suddenly remember that the person talking to you is named as Grace, and she attended the birthday party also. In this example, the sight of the champagne served as a retrieval cue. Recalling of the memory of you buy champagne for your best friend as a birthday present is an example of retrieval. Before this point, the memory has been stored into long-term memory and you were not consciously aware of it. Retrieval is a process of accessing information stored in a long-term memory. Through retrieval, we are taking our memory out of the storage and becoming concisely aware of them. So, what then are retrieval cues? Retrieval cues are stimuli that assist in memory retrieval. In other words, retrieval cues help you to access memory stored in the long-term memory and bring them to your conscious awareness. The presence of retrieval cues can make recalling memory much easier. Retrieval cues can be external, such as the name of the shop that reminds you which entrance that you park in a shopping mall. Retrieval cues can also be internal, such as feeling of sadness that reminds you of when you broke up with your loved one. Memory retrieval can influence by the factor or encoding specificity principle. Encoding specificity is a concept introduced by Turing, stated that the most effective cue at retrieval are those that match the cue present at encoding. Experimental psychologists and their Turing propose that it is easier to retrieve memory if the cues were present when the memory was initially encoded, or converted into a construct that can be stored in a long-term memory. For example, if you and your boyfriend or girlfriend have your first dance to a song called Thinking Out Loud, you are more likely to recall the details of your first dance when you hear the same song. In this case, the song Thinking Out Loud served as a retrieval cue. The song was also present both during the retrieval of the memory and when the memory was initially encoded. Another example is, consider the prospective memory task of walking into the kitchen from the bedroom and then forgetting what you were going to do in the kitchen. A good way to remember that the intention is to get back to what you were doing when you formed the intention, that is, to walk back into the bedroom. Besides, the factor of context effect, which is changing the physical context of the studying task from the physical context of the testing task, can also influence memory. In a study by Gordon and Madeline in 1975, for example, individuals learn best when they study and were tested at the same location. Those whose studying took place in the one location and testing took place in the different location did not perform well. However, research also demonstrated that the change in physical context need to be very dramatically to affect memory. For example, Salfi, Otaka, and Provaresco, 1986, showed that the students' test performance did not change when they were tested in the same classroom they learned in or a different classroom. If students need to recall information for a test, for example, in a new context that differs greatly from the context in which they learn the information, they should try to imagine the learning context before they start recalling. Because retrieval cues are important to some memories, it is possible for you to fail to recall memories due to the lack of retrieval cues. Without those retrieval cues, you may not to be able to recall the memory at all. Assume you are driving in a car with your friends and a song comes on the radio. You both start singing along and your friend turns to you and asks you the name of the singer on the song. You know who is the singer and you start listing off a bunch of a song, but you cannot remember what her name is. What you have just experienced is known as tips of the tongue phenomenon, a type of retrieval failure. Now, you and your friend continue driving and you saw a picture of the singer's face on the billboard. This causes you to remember the singer's name, which you tell your friend. Without the retrieval cues, which means the picture, you were unable to recall the name of the singer, although you knew who she was. Once you saw the picture, you were able to recall the singer's name. In summary, retrieval involves pulling information out of the long-term memory and recalling it. Retrieval cues are stimuli that assist in memory retrieval. Retrieval cues can be external or internal stimuli. Experimental psychologists and their Turing propose that it is easier to retrieve memory if the cues that were present when the memory was initially encoded or converted into a construct that can be stored in long-term memory. We're also present when retrieved from a long-term memory. The lack of retrieval cues can lead to retrieval failure. So the next time you ask someone a question and she tells you the answer is on the tips of her tongue, tell her that it's actually in long-term memory. She just needs to find cues to retrieve it.
Hello everyone, my name is Tia and I'll be presenting on the roles that interference plays in retrieval. So interference is a memory phenomenon in which some memories interfere with the retrieval of other memories. It happens usually when some information makes it difficult to recall similar material. So there are two types of interference. One is proactive interference and the other is retroactive interference. Proactive interference is when older memories interfere with the retrieval of newer memories. For example, when we move into a new house and when we have to write the address, instead of writing the new address, we write the older one. And retroactive interference, on the other hand, is when new memories interfere with the retrieval of older memories. For example, when a musician learns a new note and finds it difficult to recall the notes which he previously learned. While interference is just one explanation for why we forget, it is an important one. The competition between similar memories might make it much more difficult to recall things as learned in the past. This interference can also make it hard to recall more recent memories. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha and I will present about types of recall memory. The first type of recall memory is free call. What is free call? Free call means a person is given a list of items to remember and then is asked to recall the items in any order. And it often displays evidence of either the primary effect, which is like a person recall items presented at the beginning of the list earlier and more often. And then the second one is recent effect. Recent effect is which the person recalls the item and present at the beginning of the list earlier and more often. And then the third effect is contiguity effects, which is the mark of tendency for items from the neighboring positions in the list to be recalled successively. Moving on to the second type of recall memory, which is cue recall. Cue recall is a person is given a list of items to remember and then tested with the use of cues or guides. Cues are provided to a person. The person is tend to remember the item on the list that they did not originally recall without a cue and were thought to be lost to memory. How cue recall is carried out, with using the stimulus response recall, which is we using the words, pictures and number are presented together in a pair and then resulting associations between the two items cues the recall of the second item in the pair. Okay, the last type of recall memory is called serial recall. Serial recall is the ability to recall the items or events in the order in occur, whether chronological event in autobiographical memories or the order of the different parts of a sentence in order to make sense of them. Serial recall is trying to recalling the different parts of the sentence but in the wrong order. Serial recall in long-term memory appears to differ from the serial recall in short-term memory. A sequence in a long-term memory is represented in memory as a whole rather than as a series of discrete items. To test the serial recall memory, there are several general rules. The first one is more recent events are more easily remembered in order, especially with those auditory stimuli. The second rule is Recall decreases as the length of the list or sequence increases. And the third one is there is a tendency to remember the correct item but in the wrong order. The fourth one is where errors are made, there is a tendency to respond with an item that resembles the original item in some way. Example, dog instead of fork, or perhaps an item physically close to the original item. The fifth rule is the repetition errors do occur, but they are relatively rare. The sixth rule next is if an item is recalled early in the list, then it should be. The missed item tends to be inserted immediately after it. Okay, the last rule is if an item from a previous trial is recalled in a current trial, it is likely to be recalled at its positions from the original trial. Assume the purpose of human memory is to use past events to guide future actions, then keeping a perfect and complete record of every past event is not necessarily a useful or efficient way. Specific memories may be given up or converted into general knowledge, which is converted from episodic to semantic memories as part of the ongoing recall or reconsolidation process, so that able to generalize from the experience. There are also false memory, which is the memory are wrongly interpreted, may be created during the recall and carried forward thereafter. The precise wording of a question about memory, such as the car hit or the car smashed into, can dramatically influence the recall and recreations of memory, and can even permanently change those memory for future recall, which is make a phenomenon the person may to choose to forget by blocking out unwanted memory during recall, a process achieved by frontal lobe activity, which inhibits the laying down or reconsolidation of memory. The last one is hyperthymia. Hyperthymia, also known as hypermnesia or super real autobiographical memory, which is few people show an extraordinary capacity to recall detailed specific events from a personal past or without relying on practiced mnemonic strategies.
Hi, I'm Taperu. I'm going to present about strategies for improving the retrieval of memories. There are 4 strategies for improving the retrieval of memories, such as use association, use acronyms and acrostics, get organized, and visualize concepts. Firstly, we can use association. When you meet someone for the first time, you may associate their name with some related information. For example, if you are introduced to a person but you cannot remember his name, you might associate his name with some information like a song, a sentence of a lyric, or a picture. Therefore, you will have no trouble remembering his name. Association can also work for numbers and facts. Secondly, we may use acronyms and acrostics to improve it. What is acronyms and acrostics? An acronym is a word that forms as an abbreviation from the initial letters of a phrase or word. For example, a popular acronym, aka, helps people remember its meaning, which is also known as. However, an acrostic is a poem, word puzzle, or other composition in which certain letters in each line form a word or words. For instance, an acrostic which is candy means crunchy, chewy, awesome, nice and sweet, delightful and delicious, and also yummy treat. You may create your own acronyms and acrostics to remember your computer passwords. The next strategy is to get things organized.
Get organized is a very helpful strategy to improve the retrieval of memories. You may always put your often used items such as keys, wallet, smartphone, and the other thing in the same spot in your home, so they are easy to locate. You may also write down all the phone numbers, addresses, appointments, upcoming events in a hard copy calendar. Through this method, you are easy and convenient to see all the information on any time. Last but not least, visualize concepts is also a helpful strategy. You may pay attention to the related photographs, charts, and other graphics in the textbooks when you try to memorize a text. If you do not have visual cues to help, you may try to create it on your own. You may draw charts or figures in the margins of your notes or use highlighters and pens in different colors to group related ideas or points in your written study materials. You might also make flashcards of various terms you need to remember can enhance information in your mind.